Earlier this year, a young 13-year-old stole the hearts of the nation, and world-class pianist Lung Lung, with her incredible piano skills, when she was spotted playing at Leeds railway station in Channel 4's The Piano. She ended up winning this special competition.
A world-famous pianist challenges Prince William live on stage, and what happened next left everyone stunned. Lang Lang's bold words echoed through the palace, questioning whether royalty truly connects with the art they fund. But instead of brushing it off, Prince William did something no one saw coming. Behind closed doors, he began a quiet, painful journey of rediscovery, of memory, music, and meaning. From secret lessons to Royal Albert Hall, the future king risked it all, not for glory, but for his mother's memory. And when he finally played, even his harshest critics were left in awe. What really happened? Let's find out. A night of elegance turns tense. The Harmony for Hope. Gala was never supposed to make headlines. It was designed as a refined evening inside the majestic halls of Kensington Palace, where elegance and diplomacy usually reigned. Guests in tuxedos and evening gowns gathered under glittering chandeliers, sipping champagne and applauding polite speeches. Music hummed softly in the background, the perfect blend of sophistication and tradition. The goal? To raise funds and awareness for youth music education across the Commonwealth. A noble cause, backed by noble faces. Prince William and Princess Catherine entered the ballroom with their usual grace. Calm, poised, and used to the spotlight, they greeted donors and exchanged kind words with scholarship students who looked at them with wide-eyed admiration. William offered smiles, Catherine shared laughs, and all appeared to go exactly as expected. But that illusion would not last long. As the final act of the evening approached, the host took the stage to close the night. With a glowing smile, he announced a special guest, a pianist whose music has touched millions. A polite round of applause rose as Lang Lang, the world-renowned pianist, stepped forward. But as he approached the microphone, something shifted. His tone wasn't just gracious, it was pointed. There was tension behind the words. People in power often support the arts with their wallets, but rarely with their hearts. A murmur rippled through the room, eyebrows raised. All eyes turned toward the royal table. Something was coming, and no one was ready for it. And just like that, what was meant to be a peaceful evening of music transformed into a royal reckoning. Because what Lang Lang said next would shake the very foundation of the night. Lang Lang's mic drop. Standing under the soft golden lights of Kensington, Lang Lang took a breath. Then, calmly, clearly, he turned toward the royal table. "Your Royal Highness," he said, voice even. "I wonder, when was the last time a royal played, not for the cameras, but for the love of music?" The room froze. You could hear the clink of a glass, the intake of breath, and the invisible pressure rising. He continued, almost daringly, "If music truly lives in your heart, then join me. 1 month from now, Royal Albert Hall. Play just one piece, any piece. Just you and the piano. No titles, no script, just soul. A challenge, public, polite, and impossible to ignore." Guests were stunned. Even Catherine's expression faltered for a moment. William offered a soft smile, but his eyes were sharp. The host of the evening looked uneasy. Lang Lang bowed and turned to the grand piano, launching into a breathtaking Rachmaninoff piece. But no one was really listening. They were still stuck on the dare. Would the future king accept or walk away? As the performance ended, guests picked up their flutes, but the energy had changed. Speculation swirled. The royal couple exited quietly, their smiles gone. And in that silence, a decision had already started to take root. But behind the royal walls, away from the cameras and champagne, a prince wasn't brushing it off. He was remembering something he hadn't felt in years. A prince walks alone. After the gala, William didn't storm off or send out a rebuttal. He walked. Alone. Through the quieter corridors of Kensington Palace, past portraits, past history, past duty, until he reached a room almost forgotten, a former nursery, now a quiet reading room. And there, against the far wall, sat an old upright piano. It was dusty, the keys yellowed, the surface dulled by time. But it wasn't just a piano. It was a portal to his past. William sat down, barely brushing the bench. He pressed a single key. The note buzzed out, broken and tired. Still, something stirred in him. A memory. He remembered Ludgrove Prep, his childhood lessons with Miss Dempsey, the eccentric piano teacher who once told him, "You listen to the spaces between the notes. That's rare." He didn't understand it back then, but he remembered. And he remembered Diana, his mother, laughing beside him and Harry at this very piano, making up silly songs, just to make them smile. His fingers found a shape. A melody returned, clumsy, incomplete. But it was there. He played a few hesitant notes, and then he picked up his phone. "Simon," he said to his secretary, "get me a piano technician, and someone who teaches fast, and quietly." That call marked the start of something more than practice. It was the first step in a quiet war of purpose. And soon, a ghost from the music world would knock at Kensington's back door. Enter Sir Edward Avery. 3 days after the gala, a discreet black car pulled up to a rarely used entrance of Kensington Palace. Out stepped an older man in a long charcoal coat. His name? Sir Edward Avery, a name once spoken in hushed awe across Europe's finest concert halls. A former concert pianist turned recluse after a stroke, Sir Edward hadn't taught in years. He wasn't drawn in by fame or duty, but the palace's request was different. It wasn't asking for a performance, it was asking for help, and that curiosity led him to accept one final student. Inside the palace's old music room, Prince William stood waiting. No sash, no medals, just a simple wool sweater, sleeves rolled up. When Sir Edward entered, he didn't bow or offer any flattery. He simply asked, "Why?" William looked him in the eye and answered, "Because I was challenged publicly, and I don't want to disgrace the memory of someone who believed I could play." The moment hung in the air. Sir Edward's gaze softened, but only slightly. "Your mother?" he asked. William nodded. The first lesson wasn't easy. Sir Edward wasted no time with small talk. He asked William to play a C major scale. The prince's fingers fumbled, notes slipped, wrists tensed. After 2 shaky tries, William looked up, embarrassed. Sir Edward only grunted. "You play like a man who's afraid to be seen. Music doesn't bow to titles. It listens for truth." William didn't ask for sympathy. He asked for honesty. And that's exactly what he got. The mentor agreed to teach him, but made it crystal clear. If you're serious, prepare for pain. Your fingers will bleed before the press ever does. From that moment, a pact was made. No press, no PR spin, just a prince and a piano, and a man who had nothing left to prove, except to himself. The training would begin immediately. But what would happen when royal protocol collided with musical discipline? Let's find out. Discipline and defiance. Prince William's days were still packed. State briefings, events, public appearances. But something subtle began to shift behind the scenes. His aides started rearranging his calendar in small but deliberate ways. Meetings shortened. Lunches rescheduled. 10-minute breaks stretched into 15. It was like watching a chess game where every move made room for music. Behind palace doors, William was changing, not in appearance, but in focus. Nights belonged to Sir Edward. Their sessions were brutal. The older man didn't go easy. Again, he'd bark. Slower, cleaner, with feeling, not formality. William's fingers trembled from repetition. His back ached from posture drills, but he never quit. "You're not a prince at this piano," Sir Edward reminded him. "You're just a man with a story to tell." Every night, that story unfolded, one note at a time. There were moments of doubt. William struggled with fatigue. His hands cramped. His mind raced with responsibilities. But somewhere between the frustration and the silence, he began to unlock something deeper. Music became more than a task. It became a mirror. Every time he hit a wrong note, he learned to listen instead of react. "You've been taught your whole life to lead," Edward said. "Now, learn to follow the rhythm." Despite the physical pain and mental pressure, William pressed on. He started to enjoy the challenge, not because it was easy, but because it was real. Unlike the staged appearances and choreographed moments, piano didn't care who he was. It only cared how he felt. And slowly, the crown began to loosen its grip, not from his head, but from his heart. But while William wrestled with himself in the quiet of practice, someone else was watching from a distance. Someone who knew him better than anyone, and her silent support would change everything. The silent strength beside him. While William trained in silence, Catherine carried the weight of everything else. She shielded the children from tabloid noise. She handled palace logistics and subtly deflected press inquiries about her husband's unusual new hobby. But most importantly, she kept William grounded, not with grand speeches, but with quiet presence. When he came home exhausted, she'd greet him with warm tea and a knowing look. She didn't need to ask how the lesson went. She already knew. But even she saw the cracks forming. One evening, after a grueling practice where William slammed the piano lid in frustration, he trudged upstairs defeated. Hours later, he found a note on the bed. No royal seal, just his name, Wills, written in her handwriting. Inside was an old photo. It showed a young William sitting beside his mother, Princess Diana, at the same piano now gathering dust in the nursery. Diana's hand rested over his as they played. Behind the photo was a simple message. "She believed in you. So do I." That moment broke something open. William didn't cry. But he didn't speak either. He simply walked to the nursery, sat at the piano, and played. Not a perfect song, but a memory. And that night, he stopped playing to win. He started playing to remember. Catherine didn't join him. She just watched from the doorway, a soft smile on her face. She had done what no teacher could. She reminded him who he was. From that moment on, everything changed. William's focus deepened. His connection to the music grew stronger. And for the first time, he wasn't playing for approval. He was playing from the heart. But outside those palace walls, the world was catching on. And the silence around William's piano was about to be shattered. Royal rumors catch fire. It started with one blurry photo. A paparazzi lens, aimed across Hyde Park, caught a grainy glimpse of Prince William seated at a grand piano inside the palace. His sleeves were rolled, his brow furrowed in focus. The picture wasn't meant to go public, but it did. And that one image unleashed a tidal wave of speculation. Tabloids ran wild. "Prince prepares for showdown," one headline screamed. "William versus Lang Lang, the Royal Rumble in C major," teased another. Across breakfast tables, social media feeds, and pub conversations, everyone had a theory. Some mocked him. Memes popped up. One edited William's face over a pianist wildly banging keys with cartoon sound effects. Others were supportive. Letters poured in. One elderly woman from Wales wrote, "Your mother would be proud. Don't stop now." A teenage boy from Birmingham posted on TikTok, "If William can learn piano at 41, I can pass GCSE music." The response was louder than expected, chaotic but also deeply human. Inside Kensington Palace, the press office stayed silent. No statements were made, no interviews were granted. Catherine shielded the children from the noise, while William stayed focused. "They can say what they want," he told Sir Edward. "It won't change the work." And the work became more intense. Now every note carried the weight of expectation and the echo of public opinion. But William never let it shake him. In fact, it made him stronger. Because for the first time in a long time, people weren't just watching a prince. They were watching a man take a risk. A real one. And somewhere out there, Lang Lang was watching too. And he was about to break his silence. Reckless, maybe. Brave? We'll see. The interview was filmed in a golden-lit concert hall in London. Lang Lang sat with poise, every word delivered with practiced charm. When the host asked him about Prince William's upcoming performance, Lang Lang smiled and said, "I must confess, I was surprised when he accepted. It takes courage, and maybe a little recklessness." The audience chuckled, but the pianist wasn't mocking, not entirely. "The stage," he added, "is the great equalizer. Titles don't matter. Emotion does." That clip went viral in hours. People debated his tone. Was he impressed, or just pretending to be? Some felt it was a warning cloaked in praise. Others took it as a challenge being reinforced. But one thing was clear. Lang Lang wasn't backing down. And neither was William. When Sir Edward saw the clip, he scoffed. "Reckless?" he muttered. "We'll show him what reckless heart sounds like." William didn't reply publicly. He didn't need to. His response was in the music. He played harder, longer. He stopped counting hours and started losing track of time. Every scale, every passage now carried a new fire. "Play like your life depends on it," Sir Edward would say. And William did. Because, to him, this wasn't about reputation anymore. It was about memory. It was about growth. Lang Lang may have had the technique, but William had something else. He had reason. And while the public still laughed, speculated, or placed bets, something had shifted behind the scenes. The prince wasn't playing to survive the stage. He was preparing to own it. But the biggest shift was still to come. Inside William himself. From duty to dream. At first, William practiced because he was challenged. Then he practiced for his mother. But now, something deeper had taken hold. Music had stopped being a task. It had become a lifeline. He began hearing it everywhere. During royal dinners, he tapped out finger patterns. under the tablecloth. On flights, he traced invisible scales on the fold-down tray. Even in the car, classical music filled the air. "Debussy again?" his driver asked once. William smiled. "It's growing on me." There was something freeing about it. For a man trained to follow royal rules and timelines, piano was pure rebellion. It didn't care for perfect posture or protocol. It just asked one thing: show up honestly. And William did. "You're playing like someone who's finally stopped asking permission," Sir Edward observed. That was the turning point. William wasn't just learning music. He was learning himself. The more he played, the less he worried about being flawless. He stopped fearing mistakes and started welcoming emotion. Some notes cracked. Some rhythms slipped. But what came through was something rare: authenticity. "That's it," Edward whispered once during a session. "That's the man your mother knew." In those quiet hours, the crown fell away. Not literally, but spiritually. William was no longer heir to the throne. He was a man rediscovering a part of himself lost in childhood. And with each note, that boy, the one who once played next to Diana, was coming back to life. But would this rediscovery be enough when the world was watching? The answer was drawing closer, and it would arrive in the form of a single unforgettable gift. Catherine's secret gift. It was well past midnight. William had just finished another brutal rehearsal where nothing felt right. Sir Edward had left early, muttering, "Emotion is more than hitting the right notes." William, frustrated and exhausted, trudged upstairs, his hands aching, mind racing. But when he stepped into the bedroom, he noticed a small envelope on the bed. No royal crest. Just his name, Wills, written in Catherine's careful handwriting. Inside, he found a photograph. It was faded and old, clearly from childhood. It showed him, barely 10, sitting at the piano with his mother, Princess Diana, beside him. Her arm was wrapped around him, her laugh frozen in time. She looked alive, warm, free, playful. Behind the photo, Catherine had left a note. 6 words. "She believed in you, so do I." William sat on the edge of the bed, tears forming in silence. That small gesture cracked something open in him. He didn't speak. He didn't rest. He just walked. Back to the nursery. Back to the piano. The room was still and glowing faintly. He sat down, hands trembling. Not to practice, not for the performance, but to feel. And what came out wasn't perfect. It wasn't even polished. It was a melody shaped by memory more than sheet music. Gentle, uncertain, but real. From that night forward, something shifted. William stopped playing for applause. He stopped trying to win. He played to remember. And for the first time, the music felt like it belonged to him. Not the crown, not the stage, but to the boy Diana once held. But what happens when the world demands answers? That moment was coming faster than anyone expected. The press turns performance into pressure. The palace never confirmed anything, but the world outside didn't need confirmation. They had curiosity. And that was enough to light a fire. New rumors swirled. Steinway pianos delivered to Kensington, a mysterious older man seen entering through a side gate, William disappearing from several scheduled meetings. The press pieced it together. "Prince in piano training?" headlines asked. The answer? Probably yes. Meanwhile, Lang Lang's media tour continued. He was respectful, but subtle jabs remained. In one interview, he said, "I admire the prince's courage. Music is unforgiving. It reveals more than speeches ever could." Critics dissected every word. Was he impressed? Was he warning him? One thing was clear: Lang Lang was ready, and the public was hungry for a showdown. But within palace walls, the atmosphere was different. Catherine kept everything grounded, fielding questions from George and Charlotte, adjusting schedules, and protecting her husband's fragile confidence. William, for his part, never flinched publicly. But the pressure built. Expectations grew. "You're going to be up there with a world-class pianist," Sir Edward reminded him. "So stop trying to match him. Play like no one else can, as yourself." And that was the key. William knew he couldn't outplay Lang Lang technically, but he had something the maestro didn't: a story behind every note, one of loss, memory, and quiet redemption, and the entire world was about to hear it. And so, the date was set. The lights were waiting. The stage was ready. The Royal Albert Reckoning. The night arrived like thunder. Royal Albert Hall sparkled beneath golden floodlights. Inside, the seats filled with everyone, from ambassadors to artists, royal watchers to skeptics. The mood? Anticipation mixed with disbelief. Could a prince really hold his own next to one of the world's greatest pianists? We were all about to find out. Lang Lang performed first. 3 solo pieces. Precision, passion, power. Every note was polished like glass. His final flourish brought the crowd to its feet. A standing ovation, as expected. Then, silence. The MC stepped forward. For the evening's final performance, a duet. The crowd gasped. William walked out quietly. No medals, no royal sash. Just a man in a black suit, carrying a single sheet of music. Lang Lang sat at the first bench. William took the second. They exchanged a brief glance, tense but not unkind. Then came the first note. Clair de Lune, a song of moonlight and memory. The hall fell silent as 2 very different lives intertwined through music. William's fingers stumbled at first, but they steadied. What came out wasn't flawless, but it was filled with something more rare. Truth. As they played, the atmosphere changed. The audience leaned forward, not to judge, but to feel. Because they weren't watching royalty. They were watching a man open his heart on a stage that had no place for hiding. And then it ended, but not how anyone expected. Not for a prince, but for a man. The last note hung in the air like a held breath. The hall didn't erupt right away. It stayed still, just for a moment, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then it came. One clap, then another, then a thunderous roar of applause that filled every corner of Royal Albert Hall. But this wasn't for technical brilliance. It was for courage, for soul, for honesty. Lang Lang stood and bowed first, but then he turned to William. With a soft, respectful glance, he offered a second bow. Not to a prince, but to a fellow musician. A man who dared to show the world his heart. Backstage, Catherine waited. She wrapped her arms around William, whispering, "You did it. Not for them, for you." Nearby, Sir Edward nodded. "You didn't crash. Miraculous." Later that night, while the internet buzzed with praise and video clips, William found himself back in the nursery. The old upright piano stood waiting. He sat quietly. He didn't play for practice. He didn't play for performance. He just played. A soft lullaby formed, imperfect, nostalgic. That night, the boy who had once played beside Diana had returned, not in memory, but in music. And the man he had become, he had learned to lead not just with duty, but with depth. In a world obsessed with perfection, Prince William proved something rare. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can be, is real. In a world where royals are often seen as symbols, not souls, Prince William shattered expectations. He didn't accept Lang Lang's challenge to prove he was a performer. He accepted it to prove he was human. This wasn't about hitting perfect notes. It was about healing, about honoring his mother, Princess Diana, about stepping out of the shadow of duty and doing something raw, real, and deeply personal. What began as a public dare ended as a private triumph. Lang Lang bowed that night, not to the prince, but to the man. William's journey reminds us all. Bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. It's choosing to begin again, to pick up something you left behind and let it lead you home. Through every missed note, every blistered finger, every doubt, he played on. And when the world watched, he didn't hide behind titles. He sat down, opened his heart, and played not to impress, but to express. If you felt something tonight, share this video. Let it echo, just like that final note. Because in that hall, under all the pressure, William wasn't a future king. He was simply a man with a piano and a promise kept.